to Season 3 of Walking Dead TV Podcast. This is episode number 72. I'm Jordan from Jersey, and I'm joined tonight by Bradley Milo, Jim Dietz, Russell Latham, and Johnny M. How you guys all doing tonight, and welcome to Season 3.
Great. It's good to be back.
Fantastic.
I'm so happy. I'm as happy as a little girl.
You're always happy as a little girl.
I try to be.
All right, this is already a subject we should change. So let's talk about the fact that we got a brand new intro, guys. I want to thank Brad and our buddy Bill the Voice for providing that. It's very cool. Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about Bill?
Oh, Bill is an outstanding human being and a scholar. I've known him for 20 years-ish. We used to work together along with Frank, and the three of us do our show Half Hour Wasted. But Bill's been with us since the beginning on pretty much every HHWLOD show we've done. He's done lots of VO for us. But at the drop of a hat, Bill will record anything for us. Bill is he's a great guy. He's got a face for radio, and you can tell by his voice. It's pretty awesome. But we want to thank Bill for always, doing things at the drop of a hat for us. He's just lovely to listen to, and we're happy to have him.
And the song is Black by Carrie Kimmel. We picked that up from the Season 3 trailer, I guess. Kind of like we've done for the last 2 years. Pick the song from the trailer, turn that into the intro. So that's pretty cool. I enjoy that song.
Yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out, and I'm eager to get going.
Right on. Well, we have tons of stuff to talk about this episode, the episode being Seed, Season 3, Episode 1. But before we do, Russell, who is our sponsor this year?
Our sponsor, just like last year, is Discount Comic Book Service. That's dcbservice.com. Please check them out. You can pre-order your comics a couple months in advance. Not just comics even. You could get trade paperbacks, hardcovers, toys, trinkets, magazines, all kinds of cool, geeky stuff. A ton of Walking Dead stuff always. Some of the highlights this month are the Walking Dead Omnibus Hardcover Volume 4. These are a little pricey if you're not familiar with these. These are actually 2 hardcovers stuck together, which 2 hardcovers are, or a hardcover is 2 trades, and a trade is 6 issues. So you basically have 24 issues in one hardcover volume with a cover price of $100. You can get it for 40% off, and it's $60 if you pre-order it. And these things are limited in quantity, so you got to snap them up ahead of time if you want them. And they're just excellent presentation, oversized, so they're not regular comic book size. They are larger, so it really that art really shines on that big format. Walking Dead number 105 of the regular monthly series is out. They're also soliciting the official Walking Dead magazine number 2 for 25% off, and that's $7.49. So regular $10 cover price on that, you can get it for $7.49. Some other stuff that's not necessarily Walking Dead related, but just some other specials that DCB Service has going on this month. Hellboy in Hell number 1 is 50% off, and this is a new miniseries from Mike Mignola where he's taken the character of Hellboy. So for you horror fans, if you're familiar with the Hellboy movies or maybe in the comics, Hellboy is in Hell, and so this comic series is his journey in Hell and possibly his journey out of Hell. Although it's been rumored he's not coming back, so we'll have to see.
So, Russ.
Yeah. All the new DC hardcovers are all 50% off this month. So any hardcovers and trades that are solicited this month, a lot of that new 52 stuff, if any of you have been digging that, you can get those hardcovers and trades at a pretty good discount. Amazing Spider-Man number 700, huge anniversary issue for Amazing Spider-Man, 50% off. Its regular cover price is $8. You can get it for $3.99. So I believe this is probably going to be either an 80 or 100-page spectacular. Big doings going on allegedly from Dan Slott, the writer, with Amazing Spider-Man and 700 moving forward. Actually, 700 is the final issue of Amazing Spider-Man before it jumps over to the Superior Spider-Man in January, which leads me to October specials, the Marvel Now bundle. So if you've been following Marvel Comics news, Marvel is relaunching pretty much all of the titles. Originally it was going to be one title a week for 20 weeks, and I think now they're pretty much going through the whole line and relaunching it with either some new flashy title or a new number 1. You can get that bundle of 23 issues for a total of 50% off at $40.88. So great deal, regular price of $81.77. So fantastic deal there at 50% off if you bundle them together. And don't forget to use the code WD8 if you're a first-time customer and never have used DCB Service before. You can get an extra 8% off of your order for the first time. So again, DCBService.com. We thank them for their support.
Yes, we do. Well, before we get to the actual episode, let's talk some news. Let's talk, in fact, some ratings. This episode, Seed, premiered to 10.9 million viewers. That is a 7.4 in the ratings. What does that mean? Well, that means it's the highest rated episode of The Walking Dead ever. It's the highest rated episode of anything on AMC ever. It's, in fact, the highest rated episode of anything on basic cable television ever. And it won the night. It was the highest rated thing on television on Sunday night. So I would say resounding success all across the board.
If I may interrupt, I believe Russell can comment on how busy the website was last night.
Yeah, so Dish, AMC for Dish customers, supposedly just for Dish customers, although you don't have to sign your name in blood or anything saying you're a Dish customer, was streaming the premiere live, and their website was completely jacked up. It was way overloaded. I tried tweeting out. AMC eventually put something on their website to say that the site was overloaded. So huge response. I mean, when they've done this for their other shows, they did it for Breaking Bad, they did it for I guess Hell on Wheels, and no real problems there. Those are both fairly popular shows, but I could not get on to watch it. Eventually, I bailed out. I just couldn't do it because I just wasn't gaining any ground. They did offer during the day, as we record this on Monday, the day after the premiere, basically rebroadcast or rehab it available to stream for folks that might have missed out. So I think that's pretty telling in and of itself. Other than the ratings, being so high, the fact that there's so many people that were trying to take advantage of that online stream.
Just a quick breakdown of the ratings. Like I said, it was a 7.4 in the ratings for the 9 o'clock premiere. And that basically means that of all the televisions in the United States that were turned on, 7.4% of them were tuned to the show. That was 10.9 million viewers. And that's up over 50% in terms of millions versus the Season 2 premiere. And it's 54% up in terms of the rating from the Season 2 premiere. So a lot more people watching. There's also slightly less televisions turned on in the US at the time than there were last year. That is 7.3 million adults between 18 and 49, which is kind of your big, the big consumer group that they're looking to hit for television, because those are the people who buy the most stuff.
Jordan, when you say a record-breaking for biggest cable show ever, we broke our own record. Isn't that correct? Didn't we Walking Dead hold it last year?
I believe they broke their own record that they set last year, which broke their own record that they had set with the Season 1 premiere. I think.
Amazing.
They constantly break their own record. It's kind of like, if you think about that guy who just broke the record jumping out of the balloon up in space, it'd be kind of like if you just went back tomorrow and jumped from 10 feet higher, and the next day went up and jumped from 50 feet higher than that. That's pretty much what they're doing. They're just making fun of everybody now, and I think it's awesome.
It's like 7-minute ads. No, 6-minute ads. What is that? What movie is that from?
No, that's Something About Mary.
Yes.
Genius.
So if you want to calculate between all 3 showings, because they showed it at 9, 10, and midnight on Sunday, it got 15.2 million viewers total. So that is pretty awesome.
It's kind of interesting to me, too, how the popularity of the TV show is almost mirroring the popularity of the comic. The comic started out small and got a great word-of-mouth following and just snowballed into this big phenomenon. And we're seeing the same thing with the TV show. I mean, it's usually the opposite. Usually a TV show will premiere big and then slowly, lose viewers by attrition as it goes on. The Walking Dead has been just the opposite. It's been more and more popular as it's been going on. Much like the comic book did. Started out small and word-of-mouth has caused it to really explode.
And another thing that may be contributing to that is now you can watch Season 2 on Netflix in addition to Season 1 that's been there for a while. So, people may be going, well, I'll just catch up real quick on Netflix. I'll let the Season 3 episode stack up on my DVR, and before I know it, I'm in the game with everybody else.
Exactly. Before we get to the episode discussion proper, we should mention that the Comic-Con audio from this year's New York Comic-Con is available at WalkingDeadTV.com and on the same feed right now, so you definitely want to check that out. It's really cool stuff. And, Johnny M., I believe you have some information for us about a certain contest winner.
Yeah, we ran a couple of contests. One we'll talk about later, so we don't sort of spoil the episode before we start talking about it. But one was Facebook, one was Twitter. And before I move on, I just want to say thank you to everybody that stayed with us the whole off season on the show, subscribing, and Facebook and Twitter. We'd also like to welcome all the new people that we know we're getting with the start of the new season, and welcome back everybody that returned, right? That sort of left for the off season and has come back since the show is starting up. So welcome to everybody. We ran a Facebook contest on the page to sort of get the people involved that were hanging around the Facebook page. It's for the hardcover copy of the Walking Dead Road to Woodbury novel that we spoke about last episode a little bit. We posted a picture of it ended up being Michael Rooker at the premiere flipping everybody the bird. And the contest was to caption this picture, and we got lots and lots of entries. And just like our poetry contest that we ran a while back, it turns out that less is more. And the winner is going to be Mary T. I'm not going to say her last name just in case she doesn't want to have it on the podcast. She's Mary T on Twitter as well. And her caption for the picture was, "Screw you, Dish." So it was perfect. It was timed well. Nobody else thought of it. And I liked it. So, Mary, you're the winner of the Road to Woodbury novel. I'll get in touch on either Twitter or the Facebook, and I'll get your info and we'll send that out to you. So congrats. And yes, very, very good, Brad. And thank you, Mary.
Yes, thank you to Mary, and thank you to everybody who entered. We'll be doing more contests, I'm sure, as the season progresses, so look forward to those. Shall we talk about Seed, ladies and gentlemen?
Let's do it.
Okay, why was it called Seed? I never figured it out.
Because there's one great part with Herschel where they finally find the land and they finally get it safe, and they're making the fire, and he stands and he holds a little bit of the soil in his hand, and he says, the soil will be good for seed. We could grow tomatoes and cucumbers.
Okay.
Yes, that one hopeful moment kind of sets apart the entire rest of the mangling zombie part, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and I think it also mirrors, I think, the baby situation with Laurie.
Right.
That's how I looked at it too. This episode has the super gory action and the scenes with Laurie being pregnant and the effect of who the father is and blah blah blah. I've said too much, but I think Seed also has something to do with that as well.
I think you're right.
I agree as well. Well, Seed is episode 301. It is also the 20th episode of the show total. It feels like there's more than that, but yeah, this is only the 20th episode of the show.
The other thing, real quick, is this is the first. Now, granted, this is only the third season, but for fans of the comic, seasons 1 and 2 started with the premiere was the name of that trade. So, so the first one was Days Gone By, the second one was Long Road Home, or I forget what it was. And so this volume of the trade is called Safety Behind Bars, but yet the episode was called Seed. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, that is an interesting note. And I'm looking at the episode titles for the first 7, and none of them is called Safety Behind Bars. But who knows? That could be the season 2 or season 3 finale for all we know. I'll be saving it for just the right moment. Well, this episode starts with a 3 to 5 minute long opening group of shots that are almost completely wordless. I think T-Dog might say something at one point, which is kind of funny that he'd be the one person to talk, but he might just make a noise and a motion towards the window. But we're at a small rural home in Georgia where the group breaks in and they start killing zombies. It has been, we can see, several months since we last left them. Laurie's much more pregnant. Carl's older. He's got longer hair. Herschel's got a beard. And they are no longer flailing about trying to kill zombies and survive. They are still trying to survive, but they are a well-oiled machine. They know what they're doing. You can tell they've done this many times before. Everybody's pretty much getting in on the action, including Carl killing zombies in a very efficient manner, clearing out the house, looking for supplies. They sit down after they cleared out the building, and Daryl has killed an owl, and they are trying to relax when...
Oh, I see what you did there.
they're trying...
Owls are the new squirrels.
Hey, I think it's important to mention that you talked about them being a well-oiled machine and getting used to doing things. Rick mentions it later, but we actually see Carol, taking up a gun and actually doing some good with a gun, and it was kind of neat to see her, look productive instead of just sit there and whine about something.
Yeah, definitely.
Jordan makes a good point, though. I mean, they very much, you can tell us it's not the first time they've done the sweep and clear maneuver. They've done this a bunch of times, you can tell, over the past few months since we saw them last. And something we talked about in some of the episode commentaries is about that the very few episodes have a time jump, like 18 miles out had a time jump of, I think, about a week or so. But now we get a time jump of probably, between 4 to 6 months, I would guess. And, they're a different group than when we left them last time. They're a lot more capable as a group, and since Rick is, declared no longer a democracy, it seems like, the survival modes have really kicked in.
And Rick seems like a really different person now.
Absolutely. It's more like the Rick in the comic, I think.
Yeah, he seems, one of our Facebook people, I realize we're kind of jumping, but one of our Facebook people said, seeing Rick, well, you know what, I'll save that comment for later. That's more appropriate to save that.
Just one quick thing before we move on. Did anybody catch the homemade silencers that they were using on the pistols?
Yeah, Rick had a mag light,
Yeah.
like a 3-cell mag light. What was Carl's? It was concave, it was cone-shaped.
I almost thought it was like some sort of like aluminum bat that was put on the end of it or something. Like one of those little mini ones. But
Yeah.
I looked at it again, and it actually looks like they machined it. Like there's an awesome shot if you look at it where Carl is in the kitchen, and they do this awesome shot where he's literally pointing the gun at the camera, and you can see it looks like an actual silencer. I mean, not like when you bought it at the store, but it looks like it's screwed onto the end, and it looks like it's machined out to be hollowed, but it looks like it's made out of like aluminum material. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that they're adapting and they're getting smarter, right? Because the whole thing with the guns making noise, so they've gotten smarter about one, conserving their ammo, and two, not realizing that a bunch of gunshots are just going to draw more of them near. So I thought that was really awesome.
I thought the scene with the owl was great too, because you're tension, you're building up, and then there's just that owl there inexplicably up in that bedroom. I thought that was a great scene.
I don't know a ton about owls. I mean, they are birds, I'm aware. They fly, night predators, etc.
I heard they're nocturnal.
Yes, I've heard that as well. What was with its pose? Do owls do that when they're being threatening? It had kind of its wings out a little bit, almost like a bat. Did you guys catch that?
It did look like it was asserting its
I think he wanted
position.
to mate.
He
He was looking to mate with squirrels hanging off of Daryl.
I'm just used to seeing owls, just kind of that silhouette that you're used to seeing, where they've just got their wings wrapped around them. It's very cylindrical, and this was a strange position for it to be in. I mean, I assume if that's what they did, that they've looked it up, and that's what owls actually look like when they're threatening. But it was
We've
strange.
all done that thing where we're caught doing something and we kind of freeze no matter what position we're in, and we act like we're like statues. I mean, that's probably what Al was doing. He was probably flexing in the mirror, and Daryl walked in and he just froze.
I think another really telling part of this opening scene is when Carl starts to open up the dog food, and then Rick takes it from him and throws it into the fireplace.
Yeah, what do you make of that? I mean, you would think,
No, sometimes eating dog food.
as we find out later, they've made it through the winter, so it has been months. They say that more than once, the winter comment, but you would think that Rick would be like, yeah, we could eat that.
I think it's just telling you they're not that far. They're not that desperate yet. I mean, they're desperate. They're looking for food wherever they can find it, but they're still above dog food.
I think maybe Rick thinks that and wants to feel that. Maybe he feels that way. But if you watched those other people looking at what Carl was doing, I mean, they look like
They were hungry. They were ready to have some. They're ready to chow down.
Oh yeah, they were like Herschel was like chomping at the bit. I mean, he was licking his chops.
Plus, you gotta remember, Lori is like what, maybe 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant at this point, and they're talking about her being malnutritioned. Her and her baby being not getting enough food to eat and stuff. You'd think that extreme measures they would eat that dog food. I mean, I would if I had to survive.
Everybody looks terrible except T-Dog. He's so cool, his head didn't even grow any stubble.
So they're after Rick throws the can against the wall. Again, all this is, as far as I can remember, completely wordless, which is really cool. T-Dog looks out the window. He sees there's a bunch of zombies. He alerts the group that the place is not as safe as they thought it was. They hightail it out there as silently as they can, and they leave the place in the dust. And we are introduced to our brand new opening credits, which remind me a little bit of True Blood mixed with The Walking Dead. Not a bad way. I've always liked the True Blood opening credits, but there's a couple of effects that remind me of that. So not only do we have new opening credits, so does The Walking Dead. What do you guys think of that?
First thing that I noticed was no sign of Frank Darabont.
He wasn't there. He wasn't there.
He was. It was like it went by so quick. I literally think it was less than a second that his name was up. It said developed by.
Oh, yeah, I totally missed it, so it must be
Yeah, even one of the professional reviews I read mentioned that he wasn't mentioned in the credits. I was like, no, he definitely was. But I mean, there were a lot more credits in the opening credits this year than there have been in the past, so everybody got a little bit of a shorter shot up there, I think.
It was a little less obvious. Like the last credit sequence, like they have like John Bernthal, they actually have like a picture of Shane, In this they have like Andrew Lincoln, they just show the sheriff's star, Or when Stephen Yeun, they show the pocket watch. It was a little more subtle, I thought, than the last credit sequence. Plus, in the opening credits, I really enjoyed the few shots of the prison or whatever. So letting the people know there's going to be a major story element going forward.
Absolutely.
If I was Melissa McBride, I think I would be upset that I wasn't included in the main credits.
Well, that's going to come down to whatever her contract is.
I guess, but like it or not, she's a main character on the show. They should at least show some.
When she learns how to shoot straight, they'll put her in the main credits.
Okay, all right.
So after the opening credits, we regroup with the survivors. They're still trucking around in the vehicles from last season, or at least 2 of the 3 are the same. I'm not sure if it was the same truck. I didn't pay that close of attention. But we learned that, like Brad already mentioned, they've already gone through the winter. This is 4 to 6 months. I think that was a good guess, Jim, for sure, from where we last left them. And they have not discovered the prison, even though it was right over the ridge. We saw last season they've been kind of going in circles. There's 2 or 3 different herds of walkers out there they're aware of, and they're trying to stay out of their path. They're worried about them combining, and they've been circling throughout the state. And they even mentioned, I like that they mentioned that they might go to Noonan next, which was funny for me because I have some family out there. And I imagine if you're a viewer who lives in Atlanta, it's got to be awesome to hear all those different, or a viewer from Georgia rather, it's got to be awesome to hear all those different town names and be able to go, like, oh, I know exactly where they are. I've been stuck in a traffic jam on that road or whatever.
Yeah, that used to happen on Sopranos all the time for like different towns in Long Island and stuff.
Right.
It was always a treat.
I got to do that when I watched Zombieland because it first started out in I actually forget the city, but it was a suburb of Dallas, Texas. Garland, I believe. It was Garland, Texas.
Right on.
And that's was like 4 miles from the movie theater. I was watching Zombieland and I was like, holy crap.
That's got to be a weird experience.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I love this episode, all right? I thought it was a great episode and a great way to start off the season, okay? Not to jump the gun too much. But the one thing that bothered me about this entire episode, they're looking at a map of the area, okay? They have a map of the area rolled out on the truck. They've circled around this entire area for 6 months now. And, the closing of the last season, we saw the prison in the background from where they were camped. I just found it a little incredulous that it wouldn't be on the map,
Well, I was thinking along the same lines. I was thinking, okay, it's been 3 or 4 months and they haven't stumbled across that prison, which was you could throw a football over there and there it was.
Right, it was a little farther than that.
Okay, yes, I'm exaggerating, but it was within sight. I mean, it was right there. They were so close. It was that and how they've been finding gasoline for the last 3 or 4 months. But, I roll with it. It's all good.
I took it more as that scene at the end was for us, not, it's kind of like one of those things that they throw in there for the fans. And too, they made a point of saying, they basically went in. In a big circle all winter. So they kind of, let you know that they hadn't really traveled that far from where they started at the end of season 2. So I kind of suspended a little disbelief with that and just took it as we got a really cool Easter egg at the end of season 2, and it was worth that suspension to have that, several months back.
I did appreciate the way they revealed the prison. It was very similar to the comic with Rick, and I can't remember who he was with in the comic, but in this case it was Daryl on the show. The 2 of them kind of walked up around something, and boom, there was the prison. I think in the comic they walked up a hill, and as they crested the top of the hill, boom, there was the prison. So it was kind of a neat reveal the way they did it.
Yeah, like Brad said, Rick and Daryl, they go out into the woods to do a little hunting while the group rests. They're walking down
While
some train
everybody's
tracks.
cleaning their panties, I think was
With
what
Daryl said, yeah. They walk down some train tracks and they look across kind of a swampy area, another one of those, and they see a prison, a really big prison, a really nice looking prison. Not nice in terms of, it was kind of a cruddy looking prison in terms
If
of
I was
dirt.
going to be in prison somewhere, I'd want it to look that nice.
But it was definitely a nice looking building in terms of a set or in terms of an actual location that they got. Very authentic, very cool looking. I love the guard towers. There was even like one just kind of sitting in the middle of the swamp, wasn't there?
One
Tower?
tower?
Yeah. I think there was one guard tower completely surrounded by water.
You could be right. I just don't recall.
Right. And Rick already has kind of a look of, you can tell he's thinking at 1,000 miles an hour looking at this building. And I think next time we see it, we've got the whole group approaching the building, approaching the fence, and he says something along the lines of, "This is perfect."
Rick had that same look on his face that Herschel had on his face when he was watching Carl open the dog food.
I can get behind that. Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a couple things in this scene that really I thought was cool, and again shows the ingenuity of the writing and or the set people, and something we didn't really see in the comic either. I mean, we didn't really see weapons with silencers in the comic. And the other thing we didn't really see is the clever way they're closing back these gates. They're using like zip ties and carabiners and little chains and stuff. I just thought that was a really, really cool touch. Like these guys are being extremely crafty and extremely handy, and using everyday items that you wouldn't expect to use in that manner to to quickly open and close things, to quickly block things off so that the zombies don't get through. I just love those little touches.
And not only are they doing them, but they're, I mean, like we talked before, in terms of a well-oiled machine, they have thought this out. They have planned. They have the materials ready. They all know their job. They're working in tandem. I thought it was absolutely fantastic throughout the episode, for the most part, in terms of them always knowing what the other person's doing, always knowing where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and carrying it out pretty much flawlessly.
And moreover, there's a great scene with them where they're between the two fences, and they're not sure how to go about clearing out the road. They said one of them has to run for the gate, and Glenn is like, "No, I'm fastest. No." And instead of there being a big argument discussion like there would have been in season 2, that would have taken like half the episode. Rick is like, "No, this is what we're gonna do. You're up the tower. You're over here. You're on coverage. Carol, take your time shooting the rifle because you're not too great right now, and I will run." It's like you said, we keep saying the well-oiled machine, but it just goes to show like how much the group has changed since we saw them last, like how much more coordinated they are under Rick's leadership.
And Rick didn't hesitate when they had stopped Rick while they were on the road. Rick didn't hesitate to put Carl on point. It's like 15, you're on point. And Carl's like, all right, dude, whatever.
And Beth was watching the other side of the caravan as well.
Yeah, so they've learned to trust each other. They've learned to give these kids a gun. I mean, we saw that, but who would have thought Beth would have? I don't think she was carrying a gun at that point, but who would have thought to have trusted somebody that they didn't know, that maybe was a bit flighty, that was kind of weird and wimpy and whatever, use whatever adjective you want. But the point is they've learned to adapt, and they trust each other, and like you said, they've just become this machine.
Hey everybody, Jordan here. As I edit the episode, my microphone got disconnected for about 5 minutes and my computer switched over to my internal microphone. So for the next few minutes, it'll be bad, but then we caught the problem, so it'll be much better. Just wanted to let you know the rest of the podcast doesn't sound this weird. Back to the episode. So what follows is a 5-10 minute long sequence where they're running in between the two fences. They're killing zombies on either side by either shooting them or sticking anvils, crowbars and other sharp metal implements through the bars into the zombie skulls, and they're being very effective with this. Like I said, then Rick runs in to close one of the inner fences, and we see them completely clear out the kind of central courtyard area, at least on that side of the prison. They killed all the zombies inside. There's a lot of cool action in there. I mean, we could talk forever about that. I'm sure you guys want to jet in with your favorite ones, but we end that scene with it pretty much being nighttime and them settling in for the night in the courtyard. And this is the part where Herschel points out that the ground is right for seed. They can plant some crops there, and we get some character stuff. But what do you guys think about all the action there for this first action scene?
I want these guys on my team for Borderlands, man. So many headshots. I was just like, wow, I want to play Xbox with these guys.
Did anybody was anybody else disturbed at Rick's behavior? When he was up in the tower picking off zombies, he was smiling to himself. He looked like he was really enjoying what he was doing.
It's sort of the I Am Legend effect, not the terrible movies, any of the versions, but the actual book thing, where they're the thing that goes bump in the night. If these zombies are sentient, these would be the group they would worry about and tell stories about, like the Boogeyman.
Yeah, I mean, Rick was, he was joking around when he was saying later in the scene we haven't gotten to yet. You're about to mention they're sitting around, there's some singing, and he's like, we got to push a little harder, and we got to go in there and do our thing. And he looks at Carl and he says, these a-holes, they don't stand a chance. It just seems like he's become so flippant, I guess, about the whole deal. At the same time, he's not, because he's pressing them on. We got to move on. We can't rest on our laurels. But at the same time, he's like, yeah, got some target practice in today. I got a couple of good headshots. These a-holes are not going to.
He's kind of absorbed the best parts of Shane.
I guess it just seemed like I wasn't used to this Rick. I guess is a really good.
I was getting more of a Hannibal from the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together, kind of thing off of that. Like, it all worked out. Nobody died, and we cleared this out. Now we got somewhere safe to be.
Yeah, but
except they didn't shoot cabbages at them out of a snowblower.
And they actually hit things as opposed to the A-Team.
But it was quite a different Rick, and we've mentioned that before. It's been months, and they're used to doing what they got to do. But seeing Rick be this different person, he's the Rick that I've been wanting to see. But now that it's happened, I'm glad. But it was a shock to me. It really affected me to see him being this guy that I've always wanted to see him be.
And I think it's supposed to, Brad, because if you think back to Guts in season 1, he was pulling out wallets of zombies and reading who they were and holding eulogies for them. And now It's totally morphed into just, these are not people anymore. These are not your loved ones. These are just zombies, and we're going to kill them at will.
Right, and that's what I was referring to earlier, that scene in Guts, when I said I'd rather hold this for the end of the episode. But when Rick has to do what he needs to do at the end of this episode, it's quite a change from the Rick in Guts, like you were saying. He was sensitive Rick, and now he's like, I got to do what I got to do, Rick.
Yeah, bottom line, Rick.
I took it more as he finally feels we finally got the upper hand. We finally got into a spot where we're not the ones that are on the run. We're in control. We found this spot where we could probably take hold and set up and be here for the long haul. And my wife can give birth, and we can roam around without feeling like somebody's gonna come up on us. And I just think that moment where it was like kind of like Jim said, the plan came together, and you could see it wasn't just Rick. I mean, you could see it on Carol's face and the rest of them, that they were kind of enjoying the fact that for once it's like it's like their big FU moment to the zombies, right? I mean, it's just like here I am, I'm on top, and I'm not on the run or being backed into a corner, at that point. So I just thought that was a cool moment for them to finally feel like they had the upper hand as opposed to being under the zombies' foot all the time.
I would agree. I'm certainly not bothered by the change in them. I expected this. I was surprised at how it affected me personally, but I'm all aboard.
So after all that, then, like we've already mentioned, they settle down for a night. Beth and Maggie sing. It's kind of a nice haunting moment that gives them a little respite from everything. Carol and Daryl they flirt for a little while on top of an overturned bus. It was actually a pretty nice scene.
Hey, could you guys hear the screams, the cries of no from it's just kind of like wherever. Just
coming
like,
from
was that all the Dixon's Vixens crying out as if simply silence?
Yep, that's exactly what I thought it sounded like. They just came from nowhere. It was in my brain or something. I just heard millions of voices cry out.
There's that great line Carol has about they're talking about Rick, and she goes, Rick has gotten us through. Shane could never have done that. So I think she's from where she was behind the dying fire, she's really come around to respect Rick for what he's done to help her.
Well, they did a great job of tempering her character and bringing her more back to a place that people aren't going to hate her as much as they have in past episodes.
Right.
Is it just her grayish hair, or is she a lot older than Daryl, do you think?
She's probably got 15 years on him.
Okay, good. That's fine. So she's a cougar. Just checking.
Yeah, she looks. I think it's just the hair because she looks like how do I say this? She doesn't look like she looks younger than her gray hair would lead her to be. Is my thinking. I think they're fairly close in the same age. I think like Jordan, maybe she's got a couple years on him, but I think they're closer in age than it may seem.
I look much younger than my gray hair says I am. So it's possible. I mean, I would agree. I think it's just the hair, John.
Okay.
Because every once in a while, maybe it's the light, maybe it's the shadows or whatever, but she looks a lot younger sometimes than she has in the past on the show.
Yeah.
So
I think if they gave an award to like most improved character between season 2 and season 3, I think it would go to Carol. Because I
well,
really
sometimes, yeah, I would agree. Russ. Sometimes I'm not a fan of time jumps because I want to know what happened in those 3 months. I feel like I'm missing something, but I think in this case it has really worked. I think Glenn Mazzara, I'm assuming it's him, made a really good decision to actually have a time jump.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we probably have big egos as fans, but I really think they listened to like the fan outcries. I mean, everybody hated Lori, and we're gonna get recognition soon coming up where that everybody does hate Lori. And Rick was a wimp, and now Rick's not a wimp. And T-Dog said nothing, and he still says nothing, but he kills a lot of zombies now.
No, he actually had a couple lines. He had a couple lines.
Yeah, a couple. But I think they improved on a lot of the stuff that everybody said they didn't like.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of that was, Mazzara didn't. He was doing damage control last season, but this season he's fully in control.
And if you listen to the New York Comic Con panel that we posted as our last episode, that's exactly what Galen Hurd and Robert Kirkman were saying, that they were going to take that kind of, that momentum. That's kind of what they're committed to, is making sure that there's more, more momentum, more going on in each episode. And there definitely is in this one, as you can tell. This is pretty much the only quiet moment we got is them around the fire in this whole episode.
Rick and Lori also have a conversation where I don't know if this was the part where she acknowledges that she's been kind of a terrible person to him, although I know she does it later with Herschel as well. But that was a pretty good scene. I mean, she's still not the most likable person in the world, but I didn't want her to die at that particular moment. You know what I mean?
And I think she's going to. Don't you guys? I mean, obviously we're not spoiling. It's just prediction talk. But can she have this? I guess she can lose the baby, but she can't be pregnant or have a baby on this show, right? I mean, I just can't see them pulling off a newborn on this show or a very pregnant Lori much longer.
They might do another time jump.
Yeah, maybe after the first 6.
Yeah, could be.
They didn't specify just how long it's been. They said through the winter, and it wasn't exactly winter when we left in season 2.
Yeah, so. She's very pregnant, and she wasn't showing at the end of 2. So you're talking about 6 months minimum, I would say.
Well, she was probably 2 months along last season, and now she's about 7.
But they did say repeatedly in this episode, the baby's going to be here in a few days.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see her give birth.
It's not that I don't think we'll see her give birth. I just don't think they're going to be towing around a newborn. So
I disagree.
Something's going bad.
I want to see Lori's story progress the way it progresses in the comic, and that's all I'll say. I want to see it mirror what it does in the comic, and that's all.
Well, it's interesting too how the dynamic between Rick and Lori has changed in this time. Like at the end of beside the dying fire at the end of season 2, Rick was trying to reach out to Lori for support, and Lori pulled away from him. Now Lori is seeking Rick's approval, and Rick is totally pulled away from her.
Yeah, something has definitely happened over the months to get Rick's panties in a bunch.
So while all this is going on, we then jump into, I guess it was 2 separate scenes with Michonne. Let's put them both together right here. Michonne is at like a pharmacy or some little corner store, and she runs in, she distracts some zombies, and then she decapitates both of them in one shot, which is nice.
By the way, John,
yes,
we had talked earlier on this podcast about that scene that we had seen in a trailer for season 3. I think I might have tweaked the effects because it looked a lot better, I think, in this than the first version that we saw.
Totally agree.
It's funny, I was watching this with my wife, and she doesn't know Michonne from the comics at all. And the scene went through, and where she beheads all these guys and all these moves, and my wife looked at me and was like, damn! And I looked at her and said, that's Michonne.
My favorite bit was she just whacked the head off, but didn't like bash the brain in, and so the head was still, the mouth was still moving, and the eyes were still moving around. So I guess if you just separate the spinal cord, you don't kill the zombie. That the head lives.
Right. And that was a much better decapitated zombie head than we saw in the webisodes for sure.
Yeah.
Then later on in the episode, which is mentioned right here, she heads back to a meat locker at a lumberyard, which was an interesting mix there, and that's where we find Andrea, who is sick, not like sick with the zombie flu or whatever, but she's been taken out of remission to an extent. Yeah, I don't think she was bitten. I think Michonne would be smart enough to not keep her around. Plus, they are definitely talking like she's going to be better in a few days. They're not talking like she's going to die. Although, I mean, Andrea does say, if I stay here, I will die. But that would intone that if she does something else, she will survive.
We don't, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I remember, Andrea was not part of the conversation when Rick told the rest of the group what Jenner said about them already being infected, and then they said...
That's true.
So, as far as the way I'm thinking is that Michonne and Andrea have no clue that if Andrea died from this flu or pneumonia or whatever, that she would re-zombify.
That's true unless Michonne knows from some other source, which is quite possible.
True, and we don't know if she does or not.
So we don't get a whole lot with them, maybe 3 minutes with Andrea and 6 minutes with Michonne, but we can already see that they are, they get along well. Michonne's kind of being very motherly towards Andrea. Andrea's kind of playfully, making fun of her at some points, but they're definitely getting along, and they're planning on heading out soon. Whether or not that's before or after Andrea feels better, it's a little unclear, but they do set off at the end. We're not sure exactly where they're going, and we get to see, I think for the second time, the first time for a long period of time in the episode, we get to see Michonne's pets, her 2 armless, jawless zombies.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Greg Nicotero. I think he and his team did a fantastic job with those pets. They were just really, really
Their faces definitely work better when they're in the shadows. It's hard to do the jawless thing in good light, but the arms look great. I don't know, did they find 2 actors who had both of their arms gone, or are they just going to CG them out?
No, it's green screen stuff. It's I think I've seen shots of them wearing like the green or blue gloves up to the point where their arms would be cut off.
Yeah.
I was going to save this for discussion later in the episode, but it was pretty much a Lieutenant Dan thing.
Lieutenant Dan!
When
Been waiting all show to play.
yeah, and you jumped the gun because I was going to save it for the end of the episode.
Lieutenant Dan!
Obviously, if you haven't seen Forrest Gump, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
So that's all we get with Andrea and Michonne this episode, and from what I understand, they will not be appearing next week at all, but they will be there in 2 weeks. We also don't see any Governor this episode. From what I understand, he does not show up until episode 3 either. So an interesting division of what we're going to see in the season there. But what we saw, I definitely enjoyed that. I mean, that was Michonne, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And Denai Gloria, which is how they pronounce her name on The Talking Dead, so I think that's what we're going to be going with. She was on Talking Dead, and I must say, she is quite fetching.
She cleans up well.
Yes, she does. And interestingly, last season we were talking about, every time we see John Bernthal, he's got a shaved head. Her hair was much, much shorter, very closely cropped. So will we have a scene in this season where she cuts off her dreads, or they are? I can't imagine they're already done filming everything, and that doesn't seem possible at all. But yeah, definitely she has very short hair now. I don't think that was a wig. Did anybody get the impression it was a wig in the episode?
Yeah, I did.
No.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm always pretty bad at picking that out. People go, did you say terrible
Russ
wig or terrible weave?
Russ is special. Russ can spot a wig at 10 paces. Russ probably wears a wig.
Bradley, that was our secret. Sure, come stay at my house if you come up to Dallas. We'll go to the con.
Turn around, I have to put my wig on.
Never again.
Oh, children.
Oh, I dipped my wig in my coffee again.
We then pick up with Rick and the rest of the other survivors at the next day, and this is where we get most of our... I mean, we've already had 2 pretty major action scenes, a couple little ones, and now we're going to head into our 3rd big one, and this is when they open up the cell block, or before they even open up the cell block, once they decide to clear out that inner courtyard, this is where we get some of my favorite stuff the entire episode in terms of the action. We get the riot gear zombies, we get my absolute favorite, the gas mask zombie, which that was one... I mean, I don't get grossed out too often, but that got me a good, oh my gosh, when that happened.
The face came off!
You're talking about when
His face literally ripped off. I mean, like, you gotta imagine all the methane and all the gases from the rotting flesh has been trapped inside that mask for almost a year at this point. It's just been eating through the skin, and that was gnarly. That was really, really gross and awesome.
One of my favorite parts is when Daryl shoots the crossbow at the guard with the riot gear on, and you almost, it might as well have been this sound. Yeah. It's just when the thing hits the face mask, it just goes clonk.
Yeah, that was great.
Well,
It's a really,
I love the scene when they go around the corner, and first they see like a bunch more zombies in the other part of that courtyard behind that fence, and then they're like, they hide behind the wall like, oh crap, and as soon as that happens, then the riot gear and gas mask zombies come out, and it's like, oh double crap, just like they kept up piling on. There's so much good action and suspense in this episode.
Did anyone think when, because Rick made a big deal of them all sticking together and not, almost kind of like that Phalanx, like 300 style where, they all cover each other and move as one. When T-Dog went to go grab the riot shield, did you think, okay, he's done, he's gone?
I don't know that I thought he was going to die, but I was waiting for Rick to yell at him.
Well,
he did.
Well,
yeah,
more
he
than
did.
that, though.
He did, but I thought, he's going. And then there was a moment when they're standing in the middle of the courtyard and they center Maggie like on the screen, and she just kind of almost has a smile on her face as she looks at Glenn.
Yeah,
and I was
did
like,
you see that?
I was like, she's gonna get it. I really thought she was. Again, it was like 2 moments where they were being like, really obvious that they were in the clear, and it's something I really thought she was gonna get. So I thought that was cool because again, it just kept building that suspense. Because like I said in the show, you never know, anybody can get it at any time, and we'll definitely talk about that at the end. But
right.
But it's cool to watch this show and experience that.
And I definitely agree with you. I thought there was like a small chance she was going to get it right there. But I did like, and this goes back to the well-oiled machine thing, they are so in tune with how to do this that they can even take that small break to be like, did you just see what I did? That was freaking awesome. And laugh
Did
about
you
it.
hear that?
Sorry, it was Elf. I'm ready for Christmas.
He's an angry elf.
That's ridiculous.
Sit on a throne of lies.
But so, all in all, they managed to clear out the inner courtyard. They get a lot of that riot gear, and then they head inside to the first, or the closest cell block at least. And they head in there to clear that out. They find that it's mostly empty. I think they kill a few stragglers. There's a couple locked in cells. They probably died of starvation, and then just came back as zombies.
The zombies in Cell Block C.
Werewolf women of the SS. And then they find a guard room. They find some keys, and that's when they decide to let everybody in because it looks like they're home.
It's funny. I'll make a little comic comparison here for 2 things. One, this area looked really small. It's I mean, obviously it's a set, so it looks really tight. Like in the comic, it looked like more like a traditional, like long, huge cell block prison. That
More like Alcatraz. Like
yeah.
Every movie centering on Alcatraz, not just every movie.
Right. And it didn't take me away out of it, but it just kind of made me like, wow, it's really dirty. The other thing is just is the filth. Like these guys are completely and utterly filthy, gross, nasty, and this is just how they have to live. I mean, there's no like they're happy with just going to bed that night being covered in zombie juice and blood and guts and nastiness. And
Well, what does Maggie say when they pick a room and they walk in and there's like, it looks like somebody killed themselves with their brains are all over the wall, and she turns to Glenn and says, I don't even care.
Yeah. But it's another one of those aspects as being fans of the comic that it doesn't become as apparent as when you see it in living color on television. And I just really appreciate that level of again, the level of detail. I think the show is just knocking it out of the park in this episode, just really bringing it home. How much care and attention they're taking to this show.
Oh yeah.
You think Frank Darabont is at home sitting in his rocking chair with his knees curled up to his chest and with his arms wrapped around his knees, and he's got like a tear rolling down his cheek?
I think he's got plenty of stuff to occupy him. Like L.A. Noire he's working on right now. I'm not sure when that premieres, but I'm sure he's doing just fine.
Something that happened in the scene where they're kind of settling in, and it kind of reminded me of the video game Left 4 Dead, where you go through like the zone, you kill everything, and you make it to the safe house. The scene with Carl and Beth. Do you think there's something going on there? I think they kind of mentioned it, kind of alluded to that at the Walking Dead panel there in New York.
Oh yeah.
But so it's almost like Carl is definitely getting eyes for Beth, and there's that one scene where
We're gonna have to confiscate Brad
Yeah, I
Pitt.
think so. It's
Sorry.
turning into the morning stew around here or something, you know. But the scene with Carl and Beth with Herschel, where Herschel just kind of
the Herschel part was
yeah
great.
yeah
It was
I
awesome.
love that
Awesome.
I was talking to my 18-year-old daughter, who, by the way, was overjoyed with this episode. We were talking about the whole thing, and we were talking about Beth and Carl, and she was like, "How old is Beth?" And I see what y'all are saying, but I think there's still too much of an age difference there. It's a little creepy.
I think
Not if you're
Carl is
Carl.
just crushing.
Yeah,
I think
But I
she probably
mean-
likes it that he is. She's flattered or whatever, but I don't think it's going past that at this point.
Not at this point, no. But I think they are setting her up to take kind of a Sophia role. Hopefully not in getting lost in the woods for 6 episodes, but in kind of fulfilling that point of interest for Carl.
She's the only girl around that isn't his mom or his mom's age.
Or a zombie.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, look, not to spoil anything about Carl in the comics, but what you can just see in this episode, he is not a little kid anymore. He's killing without remorse. He is, ready to eat dog food. At a certain point, the zombie apocalypse has completely removed any kid from him, or for the most part anyway. And he, not to say that, she's 15 or 16 or 17 and he's 13 or whatever, that it makes it cool or whatever, but at a certain point, I don't think any of that matters to him. It might to Beth, and I'm sure that'll make for some interesting TV later, but for him, he's one of the guys now. He's the last man standing, like Rick said earlier, or later on in the episode.
I mean, Laurie and Carol was sitting on the bunk bed in the cell. That is the fakest pregnancy I've ever seen. It just looked like somebody taking Wilson to volleyball.
It was weird lines on it,
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that
yeah,
was.
It looked like Wilson to volleyball from Castaway was strapped to her stomach.
She's been faking the pregnancy the whole time, like, I shouldn't even admit this, but like in the first season of Glee. Anyway, back on The Walking Dead. Yeah, I really like that scene with Herschel and Beth and Carl. He just walks in basically like, so where are you sleeping? Because it's not in here with my daughter. That was fun.
Did you find or sale?
Every farmer's daughter joke I ever heard flashed in my head at that moment.
It was.
Carl's too young
it
to
was
even
funny,
have her firm star joke.
Herschel took it with a grain of salt. He and Beth had a little laugh about it, and that was it. They didn't. I was glad. I was relieved that Herschel didn't have this horrible look on his face, like I'm gonna have to watch that boy. Because it seemed very innocent.
Oh yeah, definitely. At some point, I can't remember if it's that night or the next morning, but this is where we have that scene between Herschel and Laurie, where it was. In the past, like some of those longer talking scenes where it gets boring, but I was really kind of entranced by this because she's talking about all the horrible things that could go wrong with a pregnancy, not just in the, there's no modern medicine around, but in the, if I die, I try to attack the baby, or if the baby dies, it's stillborn and tries to claw its way out and infects her that way. I mean, it was a really disturbing kind of scene, and she basically makes Herschel promise if anything goes wrong, you do not hesitate to kill me or the baby if you have to.
There's another interesting point about this scene that lets us know that A, time has passed, and B, these people have changed. This is the first time we ever hear Herschel swear.
Yeah, I
He
noticed
might
that
have been the
too.
season finale last year.
Yeah, but
I don't remember him, and I recently watched that. I don't think he swore. I think this is the first time we ever heard him.
he's definitely becoming more. It's like he understands the world he lives in now, right? At the end,
Right.
once he kind of saw what happened, went down at the barn, and he kind of had that change of heart and kind of put all his faith behind Rick. I think Herschel is a completely changed man. And
I think he's still the same Herschel to the core, but I think he's loosened his
I agree,
belt a
Brad,
little.
because I mean, when he asked his daughter to sing that song, and then Maggie joins in, I mean, that's a sentimental tie to the old world, the world that happened before the zombies. I mean, it shows that, I agree, he's still Herschel at the core, it's just he's kind of adapted himself to the situation a little better.
And the fact that he said, regardless of the fact that he swore, even if he hadn't sworn, he said, who doesn't care about this is that little baby in there. So he's still grounded. He's still an emotionally sensitive guy. He's still the same caring human being. It's just that he's loosened up a bit.
And this was another good scene for Laurie in terms of making her less terrible. She talks about how she's very aware that, everybody doesn't, or most of the people don't like her, even her son and husband, that she feels terrible. She doesn't want to be a burden on the group. And, if the baby goes or she goes, you kill them immediately. Do not let her endanger anyone else. Yeah, all in all, I thought they did a really good job with Laurie this episode. From what I understand, they do an equally good job next episode as well from the critics who've seen it. Granted, there's a certain element of Laurie that's always going to be somewhat unlikable just based on what she's done throughout the series, but I thought they did a really excellent job of, taking her back from that precipice this episode.
Laurie turned a big corner for me in this episode. I really, I've come back around, and I hope they keep the direction they're going with her character because I think it'll really turn me around because I was not a fan of Laurie. And like we mentioned before, even in some of the commentary episodes, it's not a reflection on Sarah Wayne Callies. It's more a reflection on the way they write her character. And I think they may have finally kind of gotten it right and kind of put her on a path where she seems to be making a little more sense. She seems to be not so wishy-washy, and you almost kind of feel sorry for her at this point. Especially in this conversation with Herschel.
It should also be mentioned at this point, because I don't know if they're going to bring it back at some point later on in the season, but Daryl mentions that one of the zombies they killed is not prison staff or a prisoner. It looks like a civilian. Now, granted, that could be someone coming in from the outside. They're worried about how secure this place is. This could also be somebody who was there visiting. There are civilians in prison sometimes in terms of meeting up with people whenever the time is allotted. But that is something that could come back into play the rest of the season. So I wanted to mention it now.
There's lots of civilians in prisons too. There's counselors, teachers, medical workers.
Oh, that's true. You do got to ask about this, John. So it's not that out of the ordinary.
No.
Okay. So at this point, like I mentioned earlier, Rick says to Carl, you could be the last man standing. You need to stay with the group. So he stays with, I guess it's Beth, Carol, Laurie, and the baby. I think they're the ones who stay behind. They lock themselves into the cell block. At this point, they've got 2 or 3 sets of keys. They've looted off of guards. Whereas the rest of the group goes off to clear out the next cell block and look for the commissary, look for food, look for medicine, all that kind of stuff. Again, they're not maybe as well oiled as earlier in the episode, but they're still working together very well. They've got a plan. They've got the spray paint. They're going to mark their path so they can get back when they need to, even though it doesn't really go as planned. They're working like a SWAT team, like a military strike force. They're moving from hallway to hallway. They're checking around the corners the way you're supposed to, or at least the way a civilian like me thinks you're supposed to. And at a certain point, they run into a whole bunch of zombies, and they hightail it out of there. And like I said, this is where the spray paint kind of fell apart because nobody seems to have followed that. They just ran as fast as they could through the darkness. And by the way, I want to mention earlier, but there are some gorgeous shots in this prison where it's almost completely dark, but you have the sun coming in through a really grimy window, and it just looked beautiful. And I did not want to forget that because those were some gorgeous shots on the part of Ernest Dickerson. But so they're running from the zombies. Glenn and Maggie get separated from the rest of the group. They hide in a closet of some type. And so the rest of the group, when everything's kind of finally settled down, they go looking for them. This is where Herschel hears Maggie yelling down whispering down one of the hallways. He turns. He walks over a zombie that you can kind of tell exactly what's going to happen, but it still doesn't lose its effect. It was still really sad when he steps, kind of through the zombie's legs. The zombie wakes up and bites him right on the leg. So the rest of the group, they come, they grab him, they meet up with Glenn and Maggie again, and they run into a big room. I guess it was the cafeteria, I think, which is also where not the same scene happens in the comics, but where a similar scene to how the episode ends happens in the comics. And this is where we go back to Guts, Brad, and this is where Rick grabs a hatchet, which is Glenn mentioned on Talking Dead, it was from Herschel's medical bag, so it had been sterilized and all that kind of stuff. Pulls the hatchet out, and without any hesitation whatsoever, he chops off Herschel's leg to try and save him.
Lieutenant Dyer!
Will it work? So, maybe not. I mean, it's been done before in Day of the Dead, but that character did not live long enough because of other things to find out whether hacking off a limb would work, but we might find out this season.
Well, the thing about it that really struck me was they didn't even stop to discuss it, figure it out, plan it, or anything. They just went immediately right to it. As soon as they realized he was bitten, they got him clear, and then Rick went to work on him with the axe.
And what I was really happy about, they didn't have Maggie, Beth wasn't there, but they didn't have Maggie going, you can't do this to him, he might be just fine. In past times, the episode of Walking Dead might have fallen into that trap of you have the one character who's adamant, you can't do this. No, here, everyone, they don't like it, but they know exactly what they have to do, and they're willing to let Rick do it.
I was really bothered by the scene. When that happened, I was sitting at lunch, at work, down in the break room or whatever, and I was just like, no! It really bummed me out. And part of it is, I don't know if I should spoil it or say this or not, we can edit it out if we don't agree after the fact, but I think in the comic, didn't they prove out the fact that you can't hack off a limb after somebody's been bitten to stave off the infection? Or am I
don't remember, but it's always a question of how fast can you do it. Like, at a certain point, if you get it fast enough, theoretically you should be able to stave off the infection. Granted, that window is going to be really short.
Yeah.
So in the comics, if it was 30 seconds longer, maybe that's too long. Whereas here, maybe he's going to die just from bleeding out. We don't know. I mean, I was kind of surprised to see him getting bit that early in the season. I thought it'd be around longer, and maybe he will be. But, that's left for us to find out later in the season for sure.
You got to remember, it's not the being bit by a zombie that will kill you. It's the dying, or that will turn you into a zombie. It's the dying.
Right, but the bite will kill you.
The bite could kill you.
Look what happened to, what's his face?
Jim.
I mean, he was bitten, but not, like, fatally, but he eventually turned.
Yeah,
but he died.
Because of the bite.
Right, but the bleeding, people have lost limbs. That dude, they got trapped between the rocks. He cut his own arm off and he lived, right? It happens all the time. Girl gets bit by a shark when she lives. But so it's not the being bit by the zombie that will kill you. Everybody's already infected.
Well, we're talking about two different things, Brad. There's the infection, which is everybody's got, but there's also something in the zombie's saliva or fluids, whatever, that will kill you. No matter what, if it gets into your bloodstream, it will kill you. At least under the Romero rules.
Well,
I think we have seen it.
Jim wasn't fatally wounded. He was bitten and he turned into a zombie. And that's what, granted, we didn't actually see it all take place on screen, but he started to get really, really sick and turn because he was bitten. He didn't lose a lot of blood. He didn't have some.
I think he lost more blood than we really.
He didn't even show through his shirt, really.
And I think it's the bite just got infected. The wound got infected. We'll call it a wound because it was a bite, but it was a wound. I think the wound got infected, and that's what killed him. I don't think it has anything to do with actually being bitten by the zombie.
But in that case, let's say there's a 100% infection rate in terms of infection that will kill you from zombie bites. I mean, granted,
no, everybody's already infected.
Right, but we're talking two different infections. We're talking infection that will kill you, and we're talking infection that will bring you back to life. You know what I mean? Granted, in the show, you could theoretically be right, but I think everything we've seen in the show and the comic and every Romero movie ever says that it will kill you no matter what.
We're not talking Romero movies. We're talking this one show.
I know, but they do follow those rules.
Okay, put the rules away. We're talking Walking Dead rules. We're talking Walking Dead rules. We have not seen any evidence that being bit by a zombie will kill you.
Yes, Jim.
I disagree.
No.
Go back and
we don't know.
Watch it.
I've seen it a million times. I know. He got infected because it was a wound, not because a zombie bit him.
No, that's way too fast for a wound to get infected and die from.
Yeah, it was like 24 hours maybe.
Then I think.
And he was getting those like flashes of zombies in his eyes, like he was going into seeing zombie vision before he even died.
Well, what about when No, I was going to say, what about when Shane died? We were seeing him seeing zombie things after he was already dead. So I don't think there's been enough evidence to support the theory that there's something in the zombie bite that will speed along the procedure.
I agree with you, Brad, in the sense that, yes, at this point, they could make what you're saying absolutely true and it would not contradict anything in the show. However, I do think it is leaning heavily towards the opposite direction. But we will see. We will see.
I think the fact that we're already all infected anyway, as witnessed and proven by Shane, I think that it's irrelevant whether or not the zombie bite will speed things up because you're infected anyway.
When they got tested by Jenner, Herschel wasn't with them, so maybe he's not infected.
Well, I don't think they want to go the route of some people are infected and some aren't. That seems like a dangerous path to tread.
Look, man, I just want Scott Wilson to stay on the show. He's my favorite character now other than Rick. I'm grasping at straws here. I'm trying to come up with something.
The only problem I have with this episode, and I suppose their behavior around zombies in general, is if I was there, I would never, ever, ever assume that zombie leaning against the wall is dead.
Oh, I agree. Although he was in a
panic.
panic.
A knife or a crowbar or something pointy, and I walked by it, every time I walked by it, I would stick that pointy thing in its head.
Just to be sure, like 15 times later.
Just to be sure. I know I can see the hole that I left in this guy's cranium last time I walked by him, but I'm giving him another one.
Well, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and that's the only issue that I had. When they first showed that zombie leaning against the wall when Herschel walked by him one way, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew that he was going to come back, and that was going to be, alive, and it was going to grab him. I just knew it. So
right. Oh, definitely. And before we get off on another tangent, I want to mention the last thing that happens in the episode, which is after they cut off Herschel's leg, they turn around and they see that there are 5 or 6 inmates behind a wall, and the episode ends with the inmates looking at them and going, holy shit. And that ends episode 301 of The Walking Dead.
And I love that cold ending like that, too. It was just great. It was just like, boom, and done. Wow. And it gives you a lot to think about for next week.
You don't know if they're zombies or not until they cut to the close-up of the one dude.
Yeah, at first
I
you think
hope,
they're just zombies.
I don't remember his name from the comic, but I hope it's the guy in the comic that always says, "You follow me?"
Well,
You know
that's
what I'm talking about?
yeah, and that's I think a little bit of an issue. Looking at the Twitter account as the show ended, a lot of people mentioned that they liked most of it, but weren't so hot on the very ending. And I think this is another example of the people that are up to this point in the comic know that there's live people in the prison, and it means more to us that, oh, we're going to see some people that we recognize from the comic book, and people who just watch the show, it's probably not as big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to spoil what happened, but there's a story involved with those people.
Right.
Although in the comic, I think there's
Why-
only 3, right? Maybe 4?
No, there were
4
4.
and here there's 5.
There's 5. There's 4 up front. There's one guy lurking in the back.
I wonder why people didn't like that. Is it because it was unexpected? They didn't expect to find. That's what.
No, I just
real
think
people-
it's not that big a reveal if you don't care who those people are or know that they. You know what I'm getting at? Like, just like you said, Brad, like you're hoping that one of them is that character that you liked in the book, so it means something to you.
I hear you.
Kind of like the prison at the end of season 2. We knew what it meant. I don't know that everyone did or cared so much.
Ratings time, guys?
4.5. Super actiony.
Yeah, 4.5 for me too.
4.5 for me.
I'm going to continue my streak of being pretty generous when the episodes are really good. I'm going to give it a 5. It's just I think this is probably my favorite episode of the series so far.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I can't think of one that I liked more than it. I mean, I put it right up there with like the very first episode of the series and maybe the finale last season. Like, it's right there, definitely.
I'm going to play against type, which is something I rarely ever do. And instead of rating everything higher than everybody else, I'm actually going to give this a 4.25. I like the episode. There was a lot of really cool stuff in it. But for whatever reason, and I can't explain why, it could have just been the frame of mind I was in, there was a number of scenes where I was getting antsy and was like, all right, just get to the next thing. And like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff, enjoyed most of it. But for whatever reason, I was a little bored at certain points. So 4.25 for me. But still, overall, very good episode.
In that case, I'm going to change mine to 4 3/4 to bring the average back up to 4.5.
Fair enough. I will not spare you for that.
And it's probably worth 4 3/4. I mean, it was just that good to me.
Twitter pretty much agrees with us. We got a 4 from Rick Binkley. We got Jimmy and Georgia, who's a good friend of the show, 4.5. Buster the Zombie gave it 4 Busters, which was interesting. 4.75 from Crispy Lunkett. Joe Jans, 4 out of 5. Lots of zombies, just the way I like them. We got a couple of We Think Deny is the Perfect Michonne. 4.25 from The Meat Tornado, which is awesome. And, that's pretty much it. 5 out of 5 from Lynn. Ducky is lost. She made me laugh. She was calling him Coach Rick the whole show from the little pep talk he gave early on. I like that, Coach Rick. That works. So the Twitter fans definitely approved. Oh, one other thing I'll do quick before we get into Facebook. The Twitter contest. I asked everybody before the show started who's going to get the last zombie kill of the episode. So obviously they had to answer really quick or all of the good characters would have been taken because the first right answer was the winner. And Joe Marie, it's JoeMe21 on Twitter, wins a New York Comic Con exclusive Walking Dead magazine #1 for guessing Daryl, which I'd back up a little bit and take a look because after they kill a bunch of zombies in the hallways, they start retreating and they don't kill anymore. So it really didn't happen at the very end. It happened a little bit sooner. But it was, in fact, Daryl. And she guessed it. So congratulations.
Yay.
The spread on
Facebook comments?
Yeah, the spread on Facebook is pretty much the same. It's between 4 and 5. Terry Bernard gave it a 4.25, a solid 4.25 Busters out of 5. Dane Grannon also a 4.25. We got several 5 out of 5s, including Michael Santana and our good friend Lucas King from the Handycast. Victor Schwartzmiller from Exploring the Multiverse podcast gave it a 3 Busters. He said there were too many dumb decisions, which I'm not sure what he means there. Maybe he would.
Yeah, because it was definitely a lot less than in seasons 1 or 2.
I agree. Maybe he could elucidate in a further post in the future after he hears this. Evara Santa Maria gave it a 4.25. Amy gave it 4 Busters. Good solid start. 1 full point deducted for Lori's appallingly fake pregnant belly. Liz Hill gave it a 4.5 as well. We got a lot, again, except for Victor, everybody's between a 4 and a full 5 Busters for this episode. So they definitely hit it out of the park this time, guys, I believe.
Victor can go in timeout for 1 week. You can rejoin us in 1 week's time after you think about what you've done, Victor.
Yeah, and I think, we're running a little bit long. We had a lot to say tonight, and we're probably getting ready to wrap this up right now. But I think we'll start next show with some voicemails and comments and things to wrap up Seed, and then we'll move on to episode 2. So next week we'll take care of all that good stuff.
And over at Forum for Geeks, forumforgeeks.com, Big Raj said he really enjoyed it, and it's a great start to what's still his favorite arc in the comics.
Awesome. A good start.
So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Until next time, you can find all of our contact information and all of our other great shows at www.hhwlod.com. So check that out for sure. And until there's no more room left in hell and the dead walk the earth, remember, if your gas mask is so firmly affixed that simply removing it will tear off your skin, well, you're doing it wrong. Have a good week, everybody.
Good night.
So long.
And next week, spoilers for anybody who doesn't want to know just the basic synopsis of next week's episode. Next week on The Walking Dead, episode 302 is called Sick, and the brief blurb we have is, after a traumatic event, a life hangs in the balance. Complicating matters, the group must also deal with potential threat to their new surroundings. So,
Translation:
Herschel got bit. There's prisoners in
Herschel
prison.
got bit. He's gonna die. They found live people in the prison that they can't trust.
Spoilers, Brad.